Maria is my name. I married Paul 6 years ago because I thought we had similar aspirations. We moved into my opulent apartment, which was located on the top floor of a tall building and had an amazing view. My career was booming as the head of the finance department at a trading company. Lauren, Paul's mother, used to live close by and come see us. She was very obvious from away that she disapproved of my concentrating on my work. "A woman's place is at home," she would scowl and say. "You should be taking care of your husband, not running off to work every day." I tried to be calm, nodding and smiling as Lauren gave me a long lecture on what makes a good wife, but on the inside I was furious. I had informed Paul right away that I wanted to put my work first before having children. Back then he had agreed, but over time I could see his mother's influence wearing thin on him. Paul and Lauren were having a lengthy talk at the dining table when I arrived home one evening from a demanding workday. As soon as I walked in, they became quiet, and I got a cold. "Maria, we need to talk," Paul stated in a serious manner. With my heart pounding, I set down my suitcase and took a seat. "What's wrong?" Lauren was the first to speak. "Maria, our thoughts and prayers are with you. This work isn't beneficial to you at all. You're not taking care of your spouse or your house. When will you begin considering starting a family?" Breathing deeply, I tried not to panic. "Paul, Lauren, and I have talked about this. We decided that we would put our professions first and consider starting a family later." Paul shifted in his chair uneasily. "Maria, perhaps you should think it over again. Mom is right. We're not growing any younger. I'm sick and tired of ordering takeaway every night, and my apartment is a disaster." I was hearing things that I couldn't believe. "Are you serious, Paul? We discussed this. You are aware of how essential my work is to me." "More important than your family." Lauren gave a savage cut. With my chair scratching the floor, I got up. "I'm creating a future for our family through my work." I said, "I thought you understood, Paul," before hurriedly leaving the room and shutting the door behind me in our bedroom. I couldn't get rid of the idea that there would be more issues as I lay on the bed and stared up at the ceiling. I was unaware of my own correctness. I left for work the following morning before Paul was even conscious. I vowed to myself as I took the elevator down to the lobby that I would not let anyone, not even my spouse, to stop me from pursuing my goals. I wasn't going to give up now that I'd worked too hard to get here. I was determined to prove my worth, so I came to work earlier than normal and stayed late into the night. My commitment was not in vain. I heard my secretary buzz in a few hours later. "Mrs. Michael, the president would like to see you in his office." As I climbed to the top floor, my heart was beating faster. Our company's president, Mr. William, had a reputation for surprising his staff members and having astute financial acumen. He said, "Maria, come in," as I rapped on his door. "Have a seat." I sat with my hands clenched in my lap, perched on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk. "I must say I'm impressed," Mr. Williams said, his expression unreadable. "I've been watching your work closely." I released a breath that I was unaware I was holding. "Thank you, sir." His eyes were piercing as he leaned forward. "Maria, we're growing and joining forces with a sizable business from a different city. We must enlist the best personnel for this significant move." My heartbeat became faster. Was everything proceeding as I had anticipated? He went on, "I'm going to give you a promotion to head of a new department. However, Maria, I won't lie to you. It will not be easy. You'll need to put in more effort than before. Are you willing to participate?" I contemplated Paul and Lauren, their anticipations from me. Then I recalled all the late nights I had spent reviewing financial reports and the joy I experienced when a project was completed flawlessly. "Yes, sir," I firmly replied. "I agree. I'm not going to fail you." I felt like I was walking on air as I left Mr. Williams' office. I had spent the last several years aiming for this. I was very excited to tell Paul the news. Surely he would see how important my career was to me after seeing how successful I was getting. I made a stop at our go-to restaurant on my way home and ordered every dish Paul loved. Eager to celebrate, I grabbed a bottle of champagne and a bunch of roses. I wanted this to be a memorable evening. I said, "Paul, I'm home, and I've got a surprise," as I juggled the luggage and opened the door to our flat. He was laying on the couch in the living room, the TV on full volume when I found him. When I stepped in, he hardly looked up. "Paul, you're not going to believe what happened today," I exclaimed, bursting with enthusiasm. "I'm moving up to become the head of a new division. Isn't that incredible?" Paul turned to face me after turning off the TV, but his look was icy rather than happy. "So you'll be working even more now, is that it?" My smile dimmed slightly. "Yeah, but consider the implications for us. We are able to regularly travel the world and purchase the large house of our dreams. Our destiny is predetermined." Paul abruptly got to his feet. "Our prospects? Maria, what future? It's never home, really. How recently have we shared a meal together? When was the last time we actually had a meaningful discussion?" I gestured to the bags I brought home. "That's why I brought dinner. I thought we could celebrate." "Celebrate what?" Paul's voice rose. "Celebrate you choosing your job over our marriage. Celebrate the fact that I married a woman who cares more about her career than having a family." I felt tears welling up. "I thought you'd be happy for me," I whispered. Paul's face softened for a moment, but then he hardened again. "I can't do this anymore. Maria, something has to change." With that, he stormed off to his office, slamming the door behind him. I stood in the middle of our living room, surrounded by the things meant for a celebration that would never happen. I felt more alone than ever. As I put away the food and poured myself a glass of champagne, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the price of success? And if it was I willing to pay it? One evening, as I was leaving the office, I had an idea. I could hire a housekeeper, someone to clean the apartment and cook meals. It would solve Paul's complaints about the mess and the lack of home-cooked food. Feeling satisfied with my solution, I made the necessary arrangements. 3 weeks later, I came home to a spotless apartment with the smell of a home-cooked meal filling the air. I smiled to myself, certain that Paul would be pleased. Then I heard the front door open and close. Paul had come home. "I'm home and dinner's ready," I called out. Paul walked into the kitchen, looking around at the clean space. "What's all this?" he asked. "I hired a housekeeper," I explained, feeling proud. "She cleans and cooks. I thought it would make things easier for both of us." But instead of being grateful, Paul's face darkened. "So this is your solution? Hire someone else to do your job." "That's not fair," I protested. "I'm trying to find a balance." "Balance?" Paul laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call this? Now that you've found someone to replace you in the kitchen, are you planning to find a replacement for yourself in our bed too?" I felt like he had slapped me. "How dare you?" I hissed. "I've done nothing but try to make our life better, and this is how you react." Paul turned away. "I'm going out. Don't wait up." The door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in the spotless kitchen, the dinner getting cold on the table. Over the next few days, Paul and I barely spoke. I buried myself in work, focusing on the upcoming merger. It was easier to deal with spreadsheets than the mess my personal life had become. Then, on a rare Sunday when I didn't have to go to the office, I decided to make an effort. I spent the morning cooking Paul's favorite meals, set the table with our best dishes, and even put on the dress he had bought me for our last anniversary. When Paul came home, I greeted him with a smile. "I thought we could have a nice dinner together," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Just the two of us." Paul looked at me for a long moment, then nodded silently. My heart leaped. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. I was just about to serve the appetizer when the doorbell rang. Confused, I went to answer it. There, standing in the hallway, was Lauren. "Lauren," I said, surprised. "We weren't expecting you." "Oh, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. "Paul, darling, there you are." I watched in dismay as my carefully planned romantic dinner turned into an impromptu family gathering. Lauren dominated the conversation, slipping in not-so-subtle digs about my housekeeping and lack of maternal instincts. "You know," she said, pouring herself more wine, "in my day a woman knew her place was in the home. We took pride in taking care of our husbands and raising our children." I stood up quickly. "I think it's time for dessert," I said, and hurried to the kitchen. As I leaned against the counter, trying to calm down, I could hear Lauren's voice from the dining room. "Paul, darling, you need to talk some sense into her. A woman's duty is to her family first. Everything else is secondary." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. This wasn't how I imagined my life would be. I had a successful career and a beautiful home, but at what cost? As I listened to Lauren continue talking about traditional family values, I started to wonder if I had made a big mistake somewhere along the way. One evening, I came home later than usual, still thinking about the day's meetings. As I opened the door to our apartment, I froze. Scattered across the living room floor were baby clothes, tiny onesies, little socks, even a small pair of shoes. "Paul," I called out, my voice shaking. "What's all this?" He came out of the bedroom with a strange look on his face. "Oh, Mom brought those over. She thought it might help you get in the mood." I picked up a small T-shirt, my fingers trembling. In the mood for what, exactly? "For starting a family, of course," Paul said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Maria, we're not getting any younger. It's time we seriously thought about having children." I spent the rest of the evening quietly putting away the baby clothes, my mind in turmoil. Was I being selfish? Was my ambition ruining my marriage? The next morning, I woke up to find more baby items placed around the apartment, a rattle on the coffee table, a baby book on my nightstand, a high chair in the kitchen. It was clear Lauren had a hand in this. I tried to ignore them, but every day there was something new. It felt like the apartment was slowly turning into a nursery, whether I wanted it to or not. One night, I came home to find Lauren sitting on our couch, flipping through a parenting magazine. "Lauren," I said, unable to hide my irritation, "I didn't know you were coming over." She looked up with a sweet smile. "Oh, Maria dear, I hope you don't mind. Paul said I could wait here for him. He's just gone out to get some groceries." I nodded stiffly and went to the bedroom to change. When I came back, Lauren was standing by the window, looking out at the city skyline. "You know, Maria," she said without turning around, "a view like this is wasted on just 3 people. Imagine how lovely it would be to have a child toddling up to this window, their little hands pressed against the glass, eyes wide with wonder." I felt a headache coming on. "Lauren, I appreciate your concern, but Paul and I will decide when we're ready for children," I said firmly. She turned to face me, her eyes hard. "And when will that be, Maria? When you've worked yourself into an early grave, when it's too late." I was about to argue, but just then Paul walked in with grocery bags. He looked between us, sensing the tension. "Everything okay here?" he asked cautiously. Lauren's demeanor changed instantly. "Oh, everything's fine, darling. I was just having a little chat with Maria about family planning." Paul's eyes lit up. "Really? That's great. I knew you'd come around, Maria." I felt cornered and outnumbered. "I need some air," I mumbled, grabbing my coat and rushing out of the apartment. A few weeks later, I came home exhausted from another long day at work. The sight that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. Lauren was padding around our living room in fluffy pink pajamas. "What's going on here?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. Paul emerged from the kitchen with a defiant look on his face. "I've decided that Mom is going to live with us. You're always at work, always away from home. I'm tired of being alone." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You decided this without even discussing it with me. When are you ever here to discuss anything?" Paul shot back. I turned to Lauren, who was watching our exchange with a smug smile. "You can't stay here. This is my home." Paul's face darkened. "If you're not happy with this arrangement, you can get out." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Excuse me, I bought this apartment before we even got married. It's registered in my name. You can't kick me out of my own home." Lauren stood up, her face twisted with anger. She took a step towards me. "Now listen here, you ungrateful." I held up a hand to stop her. "Don't come any closer, Lauren. If you lay a hand on me, I'll call the police." Lauren's face crumpled, and she collapsed onto the sofa, clutching her chest dramatically. "Oh, Paul," she wailed, "did you hear that? She threatened to call the police on me. Your own wife threatening your mother. That awful job of hers has turned her into a monster." Paul rushed to his mother's side, shooting me a venomous look. "How could you, Maria, your own mother-in-law?" I couldn't take it anymore. Without another word, I stormed off to the guest bedroom and locked the door behind me. I had a restless night, tossing and turning as I thought about how crazy the situation had become. The next morning my phone rang. It was Mr. William, my boss. "Maria, I need you on a plane today," he said. "We're ready to move forward with the merger. I need you in Cleveland ASAP." I packed faster than I ever had in my life. As I wheeled my suitcase to the front door, I was met with the cold stares of Paul and Lauren. "I have to go on a business trip," I said, my voice cold. "It's for the merger. I'll be back soon." Paul's lip curled. "Don't bother coming back at all." The flight to Cleveland was a blur. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. The merger negotiations were intense and took all my focus and energy. But in the quiet moments alone in my hotel room, the reality of my situation hit me hard. After a grueling week of negotiations and sleepless nights, I finally returned home. As I stood outside my apartment door, suitcases at my feet, I felt both exhausted and anxious. I just wanted to collapse into my own bed and forget about everything for a while. But when I tried to unlock the door, the key wouldn't turn. Frowning, I tried again. Nothing. A cold feeling of dread washed over me as I realized what had happened. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. After a moment, it swung open. Paul and Lauren stood there in casual clothes, looking at me with smug expressions. "Why doesn't my key work?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Paul let out a harsh laugh. "I changed the locks," he said, his eyes full of malice. "You can come in if you're ready to choose your family over your precious career." I stood there stunned. "What are you talking about?" Paul reached into his pocket and pulled out a stack of papers. With a flourish, he handed them to me. "Divorce papers," he said. "It's time to choose, Maria. Your career or your home. What's it going to be?" I looked at Paul, really looked at him, and realized something profound. I didn't love him anymore. The man I had married was gone, replaced by this bitter, manipulative stranger. Lauren's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "Well, we're waiting. Make your choice." I took a deep breath and straightened up. "I choose my career," I said, my voice steady, "because I don't have a family or a husband, not anymore." Paul's face twisted with anger, but he handed me a pen with a steady hand. I signed the divorce papers right there in the hallway. As soon as I finished, Lauren grabbed my arm and roughly pushed me toward the elevator. "Good riddance," she spat, slamming the door behind me. I stood there staring at the closed door of what used to be my home. A laugh bubbled up in my chest, almost hysterical. I had just been kicked out of my own apartment, the one I bought with my hard-earned money. Too tired to cause a scene, I gathered my suitcases and made my way to a nearby hotel. A few hours later, I got a call from my friend Janet, a realtor who had helped me buy the apartment. "Maria Hahn, how are you doing?" Janet asked, concern in her voice. "I've been better," I admitted. "Why do you ask?" Janet hesitated. "I've seen Paul's posts on social media. He's saying some pretty nasty things about you." My stomach dropped. What kind of things? He's calling you a soulless careerist who destroyed your family for your job. He says he sacrificed everything for your relationship, and you just used him and tossed him aside. He's even talking about suing you for alimony. People are really sympathizing with him, Maria. I felt a surge of anger. That's not what happened at all. "I didn't think so," Janet said. "Want to tell me your side?" I gave her a quick rundown of the past week's events. When I finished, Janet was quiet for a moment. "Oh, Maria," she finally said, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Listen, I'm going to set the record straight with our friends and colleagues. People need to know the truth." "Thanks, Janet," I said, feeling a lump in my throat. "I really appreciate that." As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at Paul's lies, gratitude for Janet's support, and a growing determination. Paul might have taken my home for now, but I wasn't going to let him take my reputation or my dignity. The vibration of my phone startled me out of my thoughts. Mr. Williams' name flashed on the screen, and my stomach dropped. I took a deep breath and answered. "Maria, we need to talk," Mr. Williams said, his voice unusually serious. "I've heard some concerning things on social media." I closed my eyes, bracing for the worst. "Sir, I can explain." "No need to explain, Maria," he interrupted. "I want to hear your side of the story." Relief washed over me. I took a deep breath and told him everything: the arguments, Lauren moving in, being locked out of my own apartment, and Paul's smear campaign on social media. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, to my surprise, Mr. William chuckled. "Maria, do you really think I believe that nonsense your ex is spreading?" He said, "I know you. I've seen your dedication and work ethic. Don't let this shake your confidence. You have every right to stand up for yourself, and I want you to know that the company stands behind you." Tears of relief welled up in my eyes. "Thank you, sir. You don't know how much that means to me." A couple of days later, my phone pinged with a social media notification. Paul was doing a live broadcast from my apartment. Curious, I tapped on the video. There was Paul grinning at the camera, surrounded by a film crew. "Hey everyone," Paul said, "exciting news. We're about to start a major renovation on our apartment. The crew from Extreme Makeover. Home Edition will be here in 3 weeks to transform this place." I stared at the screen, a plan forming in my mind. Instead of anger, I felt a calm determination. I picked up my phone and dialed Janet's number. "It's Maria," I said as soon as she answered. "I need a huge favor. I need you to sell my apartment fast, like within 3 weeks. Janet let out a low whistle. "That's a tall order. Maria, what's the rush?" I quickly explained about Paul's renovation plans. "I need new owners in there before that film crew arrives." "But Maria, how am I supposed to show the apartment?" Paul changed the locks, remember. "I'll send you the most recent photos I have of the place. They'll have to do. I know it's not ideal." Janet laughed and interrupted me. "You undervalue me, honey. A couple I know have been searching this area specifically for a restaurant like this. With these pictures and the building standing, they put their trust in my assessment. I believe I can pull this off." The 3 weeks passed quickly, filled with work and excitement. The day of the grand restoration reveal had arrived before I realized it. With my laptop open, I anxiously watched the live stream while sitting in my hotel room. The camera zoomed over my old apartment, which was now occupied with eager film crew members and building laborers. Grinning at the cameras, Paul and Lauren were positioned in the middle. "We can't wait to begin this renovation," Paul exclaimed, putting his arm around Lauren's waist. "It's time for a fresh start, a new chapter in our lives." There was a disturbance off camera just as the host was ready to announce that the demolition may begin. The door flew open, letting in a well-groomed couple with a well-known visage behind them. "Janet," I said, "I'm sorry, but you can't renovate this apartment. Now it's ours. The man with a stack of papers added. Confusion broke out as the camera swung wildly. Paul's expression changed from shock to rage. "What topic are you discussing? This is where I call home." With a composed yet forceful tone, Janet took a step forward. "Paul, this flat actually belonged to Maria, your ex-wife. 3 weeks ago, she sold it to this adorable couple. The renovation documents bear a fake signature from you." The show's presenter turned to face Paul, his expression enraged. "Is it a fake? Are you aware of the amount of difficulty you've created?" As the presenter continued to chastise Paul and Lauren on live television, their faces brightened into red. Millions of people watched in real time as Paul's lies came to light in this incident. I laughed uncontrollably, feeling both relieved and vindicated. It was finished. I took a risk with the money I got from selling the apartment. I recently concluded the merging of our company and purchased a quaint, modest house in the city. A new house in the city where my career was taking off felt poetic. I was thrilled when Mr. William made me the head of our recently purchased business. It was a challenge, but I was more than capable of handling it. A few weeks later, I stood before Paul once more, this time in court. His demand for alimony and half of the proceeds from the sale of the apartment was quite bold. I was pleased to see the judge reject his arguments, pointing out the falsified paperwork and his illegal attempt to seize my property. Paul came up to me as we were leaving the courthouse, his prior confidence gone and his face full of despair. "Please, Maria," he pleaded. "I apologize for everything. Can't we begin anew? Give our union another go." I truly looked at him and felt nothing at all, just a profound sense of liberation instead of rage or despair. I finally laughed, not in a nice way. "No, Paul," I responded with a head shake. "We are unable to begin again. However, I can begin over, and I am doing just that." I felt lighter than I have in years as I turned to leave. I was directing a successful merger, my career was taking off, and both my superiors and colleagues appreciated me. I had moved into a stunning new house that was fully mine.